I didn't think that through, did I? And I have begun. I guess it's fine. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Okay. Everything's running. I'm recording. Oh, right. This is backwards. So, this is the Nicole Howard Show. I'm still running trials here on how to do this. I forgot to put my thumbnail on twice, which is the presentation when you open my show. Anyway. The cat has joined me. And where did my chat go? Did I type chat? Oh, I don't think I typed anything. There we go. Now it's working. So right now I'm, oh, don't highlight that. I figured out what I'm doing with my stream. That it's a long story. There are so many variables I've said, but I'm not going to keep going on about that. You guys don't need to hear about it. I watched a funny thing. You know, I've been trying to steer clear of politics a little bit because I don't want this to be about politics. But you know what? That is kind of a fact of life right now because this is kind of a heated time. It's October 2nd, and technically, this is a they couldn't come up with a vote for the budget, so blah blah blah. Which there are people I've spoken to who are like, "This is great. I think that people should just stay home." You cannot stay home unless you're furloughed, and some people still have to go to work even though they're not getting a paycheck. And they're like, "Well, that's ridiculous. They should stay home then if they're not getting paid." I said, "Yeah, they'll eventually get paid. If they stay home the whole time, A, they'll be let go. B, then when they finally can get paid, they'll have not built any hours up. So they'll have no paycheck waiting for them." Because I had some people say, "Oh, the places should be really busy right now because there's nothing else to do but go and, spend money and hang out." And it's like they're going to save every dime they have until they get paid. So the mentality is some people don't understand how this works. It doesn't affect a lot of people. Their lives go on. But it got me to thinking about some of the stuff that's gone on. And last time this happened, when Trump was in office, oh, here comes the cat. He pretty much was like, "Get your butts in there and figure this out," but it still took them forever. Um, this time he seems to be like, I think there's a lot of things, programs he's been talking about that, anyway, ridiculous programs he wants to get rid of. Some of them, yeah, they're pretty ridiculous. I think that I don't agree with all the stuff he's doing, like I said, and I think some. I don't think. I think people should be able to stay. Keep Anakin. What is happening? Fine, then just come up here. God. You know you can jump. What was that about? Anyway, people should be able to keep their coverage. I don't think it should be just handed out and doled out to people that came across the border over the last 4 years. That's crazy, and that's what this holdout is. But, you know, let's just do common sense stuff. Now, I watched a funny video with Tyrus from Gutfeld where he was talking about, he does shows. In fact, he came here this summer. And uh, he gets a call at 2:30 in the morning, or a text message. And it's the president. And he's like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, "I filled all the," we all remember the fires in California, first 10 days he was in office, which were awful. And the obstacles that the people that live in California, Southern California, had to deal with when these fires occurred. That there was no water in the fire hydrants and the reservoirs were empty. So he filled the reservoirs. Now, there was some discrepancies. There was an issue where if they had done something with the water, blah, 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 would have flooded the town. But, for the most part, all of them could be filled. And um, he texts Tyrus that I filled every reservoir, and they're all filled up. And Tyrus is like, sweet. And Tyrus's wife says, who is texting you? Oh, and then also Trump says, and Gavin Newsom's mad at me. Who's texting you at 2:30 in the morning? It's the president. Tell whoever it is she can have you. No, it's the president. Let me see your phone. Well, tell him you need to go to bed. So he says, Mr. President, I am being told by my wife I have to go to sleep. Because his wife was pissed. And the president said, we'll have to talk tomorrow, is what Tyrus said. And the president responds with, he had done another hashtag, but hashtag pussy whipped. Which is so not presidential, but it is funny. I don't mean to use that language on here. What is my cat doing now? I apologize. This is Anakin. He will make his appearances. He doesn't seem to care that I does this with my other job too. Cats don't listen. And if you try and lock him up, these are pocket doors. He can open them. And it just turns into bang, 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 bang. Meow, meow. It's just easier to let him do what he wants. He finally sleeps. He'll lay down and then he's quiet. Anyway, so I sat to think, why would Newsom be mad? Who would give? We're going to fill the reservoirs so you have water, so that if there's another fire, you can put it out. The people got mad when he came into office and is working on opening up back the oil lines, which made no sense if there were all this green stuff, which we've just clearly was a hoax on the Green Deal and money changing hands and this and that. It didn't make sense to me the second Biden got in. When Biden got in, he shut down all the American oil lines and turned on, or I should say, turn back on whatever was going on with Russia, and because that had been temporarily shut down. Does it make more sense if we're going to try and be good to our environment, which I am all for? I recycle everything except for my kitty litter and my vacuum bag or vacuum canister. Or if I have bones, that's from meat, I throw that in the woods. Oh no, that's right, I throw that out too, because if an animal eats it, they can get. Never give animals anything, any cooked bones, like chicken bones especially. It can shard. It's one thing if they're raw, it's another if they're cooked. They can splinter in their intestines. It's anyway. Does it make more sense to have our oil made here locally in our own country, or to chug it across the ocean in a rig that's dumping oil into the ocean and then bring it here to be processed? I'm pretty sure doing it here is the more economic and environmental friendly way to do things, because it costs more money. Then we're giving the money to where we were buying it from overseas, funding whatever they're, by them giving them money, then they've now got money to do whatever they want to do with all the money they've got. There's nobody watching, but somebody might watch the recording. And I figured out also I can promote this thing now. And it's $200, but I'm going to do it next time I get paid. Perhaps. It's common sense. So why would they be upset that Trump wants to have the everything? That's how we get the gas prices back down, because we're not paying to have it brought across the ocean, plus paying someone else who's, anyway. Okay, now what's my cat doing? Okay, sorry, I just don't mean to be distracted, but I didn't think he'd show up tonight. Getting mad about the fact that we've made it so men can't play in girls' sports. A woman, she made her point. She had for 3 years been complaining to her school board about boys being in women's locker rooms, which I think back at that age, I didn't like being in the locker room with girls seeing me. I was very uncomfortable with, some girls were just thinner and, okay, that was my cat. I just never was comfortable with my weight. It took years for me to get to the weight I was comfortable with, and it just, it's an uncomfortable thing to be dressed and undressing, and especially when that's not the norm for you. Some people are very free and had free families, and it's not a big deal, and had lots of siblings, and y'all change in front of each other. Then there's people like me who really that I had one sister, and my sister was much younger than me. Um, my friends and I didn't really change in front. It just maybe my best friend and I a little bit. We never were naked around each other though. I remember the first time I had to shower for volleyball practice in high school, and I sat there thinking, "Oh my God, we're all naked around each other. This is so uncomfortable." Yeah. So to have a boy, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine. Um, and so this mom was just had enough. So she took it pretty far. She starts undressing about. She says, "So this is what if are you uncomfortable?" And she takes off her top, and they're like, "Ma'am, please stop taking off your clothes." She goes, "It's okay." And then she takes off her bottoms, and they're like, "Okay, this meeting is over." She goes, "It's my bathing suit. I'm wearing at least a bathing suit." But imagine how uncomfortable you are with me in here, and you guys can just leave, and then they're forced to change for gym class, and there's a boy in there, and like I said, she made her point. The people's reaction confirmed her point, regardless of what they're saying out loud, because they were uncomfortable. So yeah. So again, another common sense. Why is that being fought? And um, I think early on when I started these podcasts, I mean I know I did. Um, I talked about the fact that, like, for instance, I have MS, and that's just a condition I have. I think, not to say if you think you're a different sex in the wrong body is a illness, but you were born different. I would never expect to go to a tryout, for instance, and have them lower the bar so that technically I'm doing as good as the others. So I get on the team because I have, things that hold me back because of MS. If and, it's affecting me. I don't understand. Sometimes they just want to let everybody do everything at the cost of then the people that are already playing the stuff get excluded. So to include this person, you exclude this person. It's just like when I'm driving. The rules of the road are, yes, sometimes you get into a tight spot where you try and pull out until someone's nice. You can't get out. It's just traffic sucks. You need someone. But then there's other situations where somebody will stop 10, 20 cars behind him to let the one guy go, and he's waiting for his turn. Normal traffic rules. And so to hold it, to let one guy in, you inconvenienced 20. That's not how it works. He gets out when he can get out. And again, there are certain circumstances where there are spots, and I've let people in, and people have let me in, where that's a situation where, but where you're not holding a ton of people up, you let the car in. But then in the other case where you're holding everybody up to let one in, that drives me nuts because that's just not how it works. They just like the lodge. They just don't think it through. That's inconvenienced so many people to help this guy. And then sometimes there's a guy behind that guy, and then pretty soon you've created now a new route of traffic. Ugh. I talked about last time my road rage issues I used to have. Not necessarily road rage. I use my horn a lot. Yep, you'd be laying on the horn for that one for sure. So it's October now. It's gonna be 80 this week. It's very warm. Last year and the year before that, we had 0 acorns. It was quite unusual. And the trees have a cycle. And it just happened that they all different species that produce acorns synced up and were in hibernation mode at the same time 2 years in a row, which was problematic for, of course, the uh, acorn dependent mammals out there, such as squirrels and chipmunks and deer. And it's pretty uh, serious when the actual um, people that monitor all this stuff, the DNR, said to go ahead and feed the wildlife this last 2 winters because they knew they were going to be starving because there's a lack of food out there for them. So my mom has taken full advantage of that because I started, admittedly, throwing some corn behind our barn. 5 deer showed up. They were friendly. They just, in fact, one day I was getting ready in my bathroom and I just felt like I was being watched. It was like 7 something in the morning. I was just getting done with my workout. And I looked and I see something and I look closer and there in my window in the bathroom is the one deer staring at me like, where's the corn? I was like, oh my God, you know where to find me in my place? That's kind of scary. If she did, she was very serious the way she looked at me. I thought, oh, I don't think I put it out last night. Oh, trot on out there. She was in charge, not me, and give her her corn. Um, and she was like the matriarch of the family. And then I saw her have babies, and her babies became moms, and so on and so forth. And now my mom's kind of taken over feeding them, and feeding the squirrels. It just happens to be deer that show up. In any case, um, now there's 25 deer. And 5 or so are the local deer. The other 20 come from within a mile, but they're all sort of spread out in the fields and they don't really hang. But the 5 are very smart. They stay here on the property for the most part, sleep somewhere in the woods behind the barn. Every once in a while, when I'm out there, I'll be like, what? It smells like those pine air fresheners for your car. I'm like, why is that smell? Why does it smell? Oh, it's the deer. They must have been sleeping under pine trees for that week. Um, at one point, my mom was able to pet one of the deer, which I said, let's not go that far. Then they learn to trust humans. We don't want that. And I'm not worried here, too. These deer, it's not like I'm out in the middle of nowhere. You do not want to encourage animals to get friendly with humans. They're not going to really run into any more humans where we're at. But nonetheless, we've got a lot of wildlife here. And there's a porcupine hanging out right now, which my barn cat, and I think I've told you about it, I don't really agree with barn cats, but she was feral. She refused to be domesticated. They tried for almost a year. They gave up. I offered, let's try and let her be a barn cat with a heated area in the barn. She'll be around people, and it worked. It was 2 cats. Anyway, and then they started the barn cat program at this rescue group for the cats that they rescued that could not be rehabilitated into a home. And that just, it happens. She's pretty frisky, and she came to a halt and was like, I'm not going near that. And I thought, good. Porcupines are one of the, I love animals, and but there's something about that. The porcupines are the uh, one animal that just doesn't seem to serve any purpose in my mind. Because, I mean, once upon a time they did. People used their needles or their quills for, um, I see you, buddy. For threading, it was like it was for, well, they could use it for, I think at one point they were even used for surgeries and stuff. There was a purpose in it, and of course it's been used for decorative stuff. Their quills, you can see it in necklaces and stuff nowadays. But there was a point. Nowadays they're really quite unnecessary, but they did serve some purpose on Earth. They really like to eat wood. In fact, I sat and watched one time. There was a pile of wood that had been cut from the woods, and then it sat there instead eating the molding around the doorway into my parents' motorcycle barn that was treated with yellow wood chemicals, gnawing away at it. And I thought, oh, there we go. So let's eat the poison wood and not the fresh, healthy wood. They're not very smart. But there are the skunks. That's another one, And there are some animals that can. I think a badger and maybe a wolverine can eat a porcupine. I figured it out. But another thing, yeah, skunks. I've dealt with skunks many times with my dogs that I had. It's a very unpleasant smell, especially when you're up close to it. Uh, and I actually had one of our other barn cats get nailed with a skunk. That was fun. See, he can jump just fine. Last time he was just being a baby. Anakin, what are you doing back here? Uh, yeah, so I actually one time, oh my God, I was through my travels during the days of me partying. I was living at this place that had a skunk that lived on under the porch, and then they had a cat that lived at this house, which I ended up caring for this cat. That was just the house cat that was always there, whatever girl went through there, and um, they thought it was a boy. It turned out it was a girl. When I took it to the vet, they go, "Yeah, just so you know, this is not a female or not a male. It's a female." It kind of changed its name a little bit. In any case, I was outside one night, one evening. It was summertime. It was nice. I was out smoking, and I thought, "Here comes the kitty." I felt the tail go under my legs, and I reached down to pet it, and realized it's the skunk. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm touching a skunk." So me, who nowadays is a little bit more cool and less to react, because I'll tell you the next skunk story. Uh, Jumped up, panicking. That's the smart thing to do. Jump up and run. Tripped, fell, nailed my nose on the table right there on the edge of it. Kind of knocked myself out, I swear. Got up, ran again, and the whole time the skunk just sat there watching me, almost as if it felt bad for me. And then it proceeded to go over where it likes to hang out. And then here comes the house cat, who then was friends. Lots of cats and skunks get along great. She just sat there hanging with it. So I spent the rest of the night freaking out that my nose might be broken, which it was, unfortunately. Uh, but yeah, none of us ever got sprayed. It was a pretty friendly skunk, but again, you don't want to encourage having skunks living under your porch. They can carry rabies. It's unusual, but skunk can have rabies. The next time I had to deal with a skunk in person, like I said, this is all after my dogs kept getting skunked. 4 times in 1 year got skunked. And a 5th time the next year. I just couldn't believe it. And the 4th time, I told my then boyfriend, I said, I only had one of the dogs with me. I said, when you let him out, he's letting him out at like 5 in the morning. Don't let him out without a leash. I don't want to get skunked again. And about 10 minutes later, I hear, you're going to be really mad at me. I go, no. He got skunked. I go, why? Why do they like the smell of this? Why are they going after them? Why are you stupid? Oh, get out of my way. Jumped up in my nightgown. I didn't even put any pants on. Forgot I was driving because my blazer was in the shop, my Tudor blazer, ZR2 I talked about. So I was driving our 1994 shop Suburban, which I've said I like Suburbans a lot. I forgot the shop Suburban. It was only intended to be driven during the day because the taillights were out, which why my dad hadn't fixed the taillights is really beyond me because they stayed that way for quite some time. They had the money. Anyway, I'm driving with this dog in the back that just reeks all the windows down, and I see the little red whoop whoop, and I thought, oh, are you kidding me? I was so mad at my boyfriend at that moment right now. It's like, I'm never speaking to him again. He was pretty afraid of me too. And as the officer walks up, I go, my dog was skunked. I forgot about the taillights. I wasn't planning to leave until 7:30 when it was still starting to be light out, but my dog got skunked and I had to leave early because he's got to be bathed and I got to go to work today. And he goes, I believe you. And I look down and I go, oh my God, I'm not wearing any pants. I don't even know if I had underwear on. I was, like I said, out the door. And he goes, get those lights fixed and have a better day. Thank you. Thanks, bye. With my shepherd, my German shepherds. Like I said, both German shepherds got nailed, but that day it was just the one growling at this guy the whole time because he was very protective. Next time I had to deal with the skunk, however, in person, back to that story, people just kept dumping cats. You know, we have barns here. My parents still live down at their house on the lake. I was living up here at where I live on the property, and we even knew somebody that said they were going to do this with their cat, and I ended up rescuing it. We're just going to go find a barn to dump it somewhere. I was like, so people dump cats at our barns occasionally, and one time we had a kitten dumped, the cutest little kitten, with 2 extra toes on each paw. I kid you not, so darling. we had another cat that had kittens. Both of them were inbred, so they all had the extra toes. The only time when you see extra toes on a cat and they're not inbred is because the Maine Coon does have extra toes for walking on the snow. But otherwise, usually when you see that, they're smaller cats. Like our barn cat now has extra toes. Usually means who knows who the parents are. But I'd get them all socialized and then get them to the Humane Society and work with them. And I'd also volunteer at the Humane Society, dog walking, donating kennels to make up for the fact that we had to keep bringing animals to them. And a cat had shown up, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's another one. And it had only been a few months since the last one, and so we had a live trap specifically for this cat situation we'd have happen occasionally. My mom said, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because skunks were all around waking up. And I said, it was starting to get really hot, and I said, oh, it'll be fine. Next morning, I go out to check, and I thought, oh, please let that be a black and white cat. Please let that be a black and white cat. And at first I thought, oh, it is. Oh, it's not, because it was the strangest skunk. It was reverse. Instead of black with a white stripe, it was white with a black stripe. It was like that one female in Bambi that Flower ends up with. I had a cat named Flower. At one point, she was black and white when I was a kid. In any case, I thought, how on earth am I going to get this skunk out of a live trap without getting sprayed? It was already 80 degrees at 7:30 in the morning. So I put on some really thick, serious snowmobile gear, snow pants, snow everything. I looked ridiculous. And approached it with a blanket, and as soon as I get close, it'd go, which if it was on leaves, it would simulate the noise of like a rattle or something. So managed to get the blanket over it, and then figure out where the handle is, and then I also had another blanket in front of us, so if it sprayed, it would hit that, and slowly walked, and here comes our neighbor, who never, ever grades the road. My dad does most of it, and one other guy, mainly my dad. And I thought, oh my God, here he comes with a tractor. What is he doing? No, I can't have the vibrations right now. And I'm like waving him down, and he comes up and goes, what are you, you're a little overdressed for summer. I said, I know. I have a skunk I'm trying to release, and you're making all kinds of vibrations. It's going to spray. You got to go do something somewhere else for a while. Of course, he offers, he's a hunter. I'll shoot it. I go, if you shoot it and it sprays when you shoot it, it's going to still spray us. And then we have a skunk in a cage. How are we going to get it out? Just no. Go do something else. I told him to go for half an hour. He maybe waited 10 minutes because he came back. As I get the door open with a stick, and then it dawned on me, once it's open, you let go and it goes shut. You have to hold this little lever. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get this thing out? And I managed to have a 10-foot stick lodged in there, another stick pulling it up, and I'm like, okay, got it open. And the skunk just sat there. I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this skunk out of here? So I had to sit there with another stick and shake the cage, and finally it ran off and it ran towards the neighbor with the tractor's house. I thought, perfect. I was so irritated at that point. Anyway. So that's just a little conversation, I guess, I'm having today about me. I'm hoping this will start attracting people if you'll enjoy my stories. I have lots of fun stories. You know, I need to write down each story I've done, because I think I did share my Christmas tree story on one of my recordings. I hit a Christmas tree. It fell off the back of a car, in my defense. I didn't, like, drive into a Christmas tree farm. I thought so at first, but yeah, someone just, it doesn't matter. That was a fun day. Night, I should say. Around this time of year. So again, this is October 2nd. This is my 4th live broadcast. 8th recording. I'm going to hopefully Monday get a regular schedule going and start to promote this thing soon. I really want this to succeed. I hope anybody watching this shares my podcast if you think it's fun. I hope you enjoy it. I promise you it'll continue to get more professional and better, and I'll stay on point. Anyway, yeah. Thank you for watching The Nicole Howard Show. All right, have a great night. Where's my stream? There it is. Okay, thanks again. Oh, right. Mm. Yes, I want to end my stream. Thank you.